Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages, my name is Bruce, aka Haunted Husband, and welcome to Social Services of the Doomed. Now, if this is your first time or your 100th time on my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. By subscribing, you'll be notified when my videos go live daily. I cover a lot of indie demos, indie games, and great content from indie developers. So if you're into all things indie, you're in the right place. Smash that subscribe button right now. Social Services of the Doomed is a text-based game, in case you haven't figured that one out just yet, in which they have magic and fangs. You have red tape. When vampires, werewolves, wizards, and demons clash, you must mediate, save your city, or sell your soul. So this video is probably going to be a little bit shorter than normal ones because there's going to be a lot of reading, and my voice and brain can't handle all that. So normally my demo videos are like 10-15 minutes. This might be closer to the 10-minute side. Without further ado, let me get into the reading. Fangs and fireballs can't stop you. Office politics might. When a supernatural feud threatens your city, it's up to you to save it with Booreaucracy. Social Service of the Doomed is a 400,000-word interactive urban fantasy novel by Fade Manley. It's entirely text-based, without graphics or sound effects, and fueled by a vast, unstoppable power of your imagination. Speaking of which, you're hearing music right now. This isn't the music of the game. This is my own personal music that I put into it, because there's no way I'd be able to sit here and do this with no sound. It's deafening in my mind, and I just couldn't put up with that. As an employee of the Department of Supernatural Social Services, say that 5 times fast, it's your job to mediate when a dispute breaks out between vampires and werewolves, which is pretty often these days. Tensions are rising in your city. Not all supernatural citizens think they have to abide by the law. Flocks of harpies are crowing prophecies of doom. Wizards are slinging fireballs. Trolls aren't just having peaceful chats about tunneling technology anymore. There are demons in the werewolf dive bar, and something is up with the ley lines. Sometimes it feels like you're the only one standing between the supernatural factions and a city in flames. There's a lot to unpack there. Flock of harpies. I didn't read the word harpies the first time I mind glanced over it, mind you. On the other hand, some factions are willing to cut a deal on the side, so if you really want the city to be in flames, and if you feel like the civil servant paycheck isn't stretching as far as you'd like, you could make this happen. Every faction knows that you could be useful to them. At least they know I'm useful, right? I mean, that's something. Most civil servants don't feel that way in real life. How will you handle it? Will you sneak, fight, negotiate, confuse, or just whip out some obscure county regulations? There's always more paperwork to be done, and if you fall too short behind, your boss might call you in for a chat about your monthly metrics. Also, your boss might be a constellation, don't ask. That's interesting. Make your way through the city as a demon, troll, wizard, or completely mundane human. Play as a male, female, or non-binary, gay, straight, bi, or asexual. Advance your career, sink your rival's career, or try to play nice with all your coworkers at once. Romance a troll, a demon, a werewolf, a vampire, or your office rival who's a snake person. Nice. Chase demons out of the cubicle farm before everyone gets back from lunch. Thwart the dastardly plans of Hell's minions, or sell your soul to them, or just flirt with a cute demon. Demons and trolls, vampires and werewolves, wizards and harpies, and you're standing in the middle with the most fearsome thing of all, paperwork. As you can see, this is just the demo, part of Steam's Next Fest. You can play the first 3 chapters for the game for free today, and the rest of the game will be available Thursday, June 23rd, which is next Thursday, from when I'm recording this. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. 5 minutes in, we haven't even started. Form SN 451-A. Discontinue prior editions. The trouble with territories. On this overcast Sunday morning, you should be sleeping in, but the work phone jarred you awake with a call to report to this address ASAP. The werewolves and the vampires are having a shouting match in the street, and a human residents have been calling in complaints. If you're lucky, no one will be bleeding on the asphalt yet. The Department of Supernatural Social Services, DSSS, for not highly euphonious sort, doesn't like bloody altercations in the street, or powdery altercations, like the incident between the Stone Trolls and the Harpies last May. Okay, that makes sense. Who knew that a Harpy claws could gouge granite? In any case, the mundanes don't like that kind of thing, and they're the ones who tend to be in charge of the city budget allotments. Suffice it to say, as the on-call mediator this weekend, you're expected to sort things out briskly. As you arrive, two groups of angry inhumans are facing off against each other. Werewolves on one side, mostly still in human form, vampires across the street wearing heavy clothing and carrying umbrellas against the sun, with one angry car honking at them both for blocking the intersection. Too many people are yelling for you to get any sense of the problem's specifics, and there's a werewolf transforming into a wolf ready to leap at the neppish little vampire near him. Well, stopping this is your job. Okay. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of all this. Should I tackle the werewolf before he jumps? Cite the treaty that violence would break? Assure everyone that there is a peaceful solution? Record who seems most at fault here. So let's go the bureaucratic way. We're going to cite the treaty that violence would break. That the violence would break. According to the treaty, you drop less of a shouting tone as soon as the werewolf who was crouched to attack sits back down to look at you. That is, according to the North Bank Treaty of 1932, violent conflict between different types of sapient supernatural beings is strictly forbidden without beforehand, point 1, registering a formal letter of grievance for the department, point 2, attempting mediation with the affected parties under the supervision of a mediator signed by the department, point 3, the matter has not been resolved, filing for an appropriate permits. A vampire standing near the front of the group raises one gloved hand. What would the appropriate permits be, she asks. This is, in fact, not the first time you've been asked this question. Oh, what would you expect? Making sure that you have your compliance with noise ordinance, traffic rerouting, police officers doing crowd control to prevent harm to bystanders, emergency services on standby, and that sort of thing. She nods thoughtfully. But since it's the North Bank Treaty, wouldn't that imply that, given our position with respect to the river, Patricia, please, says the leader of the vampires wearily. This is not a good time for questions. But it's always a good time for questions about bureaucracy. The leader has a point, I should get to business. Make a note of who's being a rules lawyer for later reference. But it's always a good time for questions about bureaucracy. It's funny you should bring that up, you say. The name comes from the groups who originally signatory the treaty, but the scope was explicitly widened to include everyone within the city limits during the 1977 Conference of Supernatural Rights and Responsibilities. I remember, says the vampire leader. She sniffs. I was there. At tedious business. Can we get back to the point of all this? The younger vampire at her side looks vaguely apologetic about her questions and keeps her mouth shut this time. You take a moment to get a better look at exactly who's involved here. To one side of the intersection, about a dozen werewolves led by a small, angry man who looks ready to get his teeth wet. They don't appear to be armed, but that's little comfort when a giant wolf starts biting things. To the best of your knowledge, they're usually found throughout this neighborhood. One suddenly finds werewolves alone. In any case, solitary werewolves tend to go feral, and 100 werewolves in one place will try to conquer an empire. So this is probably the sum of this pack. They're not the only pack in the city, but they're the only one around here. Good to know. To the other side, about 24 vampires, led by an elegantly dressed woman with a supercilious expression. A handful of them are carrying equally elegant pistols in prominent holsters, and they're certainly to have permits for them. These must be the vampires from the side of the river, Flux Wave, that from the enormous estate they usually inhabit. There's another group across the river, not on speaking terms with these for the last 6 decades. You've dealt with both groups a few times. Okay, a lot to process. You're holding your official DSSS tablet high overhead, where the logo can clearly be seen. Official representative of the Department of Supernatural Services here. I want someone from each side to come forward and tell me exactly what's going on. Your species backs up the display you're making with the official logo and an argument between vampires and werewolves. Of course, the department would send in someone who's neither. You are, in theory, a particular neutral party here. I'm a stone troll, I'm a demon, I'm a wizard. I'm a wizard. To all appearances, a mundane human, but the glimmer of magic around you when you start speaking proves otherwise. You're not the only wizard in the DSSS, but you're the highest ranked among any of them there. While some wizards specialize in flashy spell work like fireballs and levitation, you studied for work in the civil service. With a magic that courses through your veins, leading power to your words, you have an uncanny talent at telling people settle down and agree to responsible terms. It makes you an ideal mediator in general, and for this tense standoff in particular. After someone muttering, a werewolf and a vampire approach you at a reasonable walking pace this time, with no one trying to murder anyone else, currently that you're aware of. The three of you look downright professional. They're in the middle of the intersection. Maybe you can get it all resolved in time for lunch. The vampire is a narrow-faced woman with a chin-length hair, dressed in a sharp black suit and fine gloves. She was holding an umbrella over the vampire leader till just a moment ago. A pistol has been holstered discreetly beneath her jacket. From the other side, a werewolf is a very tall man with broad shoulders to match. His hair is drawn back in a tight poof at the back of his head. Sun's out, guns out, says his tank top. I'm going to wait to see who speaks up first, as appear to have to be paying favorites. The vampire and the werewolf eye each other. You wait patiently until the silence becomes a little awkward. We've got a territory plan file, begins the werewolf. We were seeking shelter after a ley line shift, says the vampire right over him. Names you suggest, if you please, and a summary of the situation, just the basics. Shay Booker, says the werewolf. The basics are that this is our territory, and they're here with suitcases like they're gonna move in. Joe there says we shouldn't stand for it. He nods back towards the small, angry leader of the werewolves. Patricia Zhao, assistant to Mrs. Olson. And we are temporarily entering this territory on account of an emergency caused by a shift in ley lines, the vampire sniffs, which is allowed by the treaty, I assure you. It's at this point that a chunk of concrete the size of your head smashes in the asphalt of your feet. You are blocking the intersection, roars a stone troll. A moped lifted over his head, and you were making noise all morning. How was I supposed to sleep then? How am I supposed to get to work now? I'm going to talk down the enraged troll. You raise your hands and step between the troll and Rebs into the middle of the street. You're squishier than the people you're defending, but trolls should realize that, too. It might be less likely to wreak direct violence if the person getting squashed can't bounce back from damage easily, you hope. Please put down the moped, you say, and reconsider your options here. Do you really want an assault charge interfering with your weekend plans? Wouldn't it be faster to take another route? The troll scowls at you. Should have expected that kind of mealy-mouthed nonsense from the dissers. It mutters, fine, but expect a complaint. I would expect nothing less, you say, and hand it your business card. Just use the form on the website. Address is on the card. The troll stomps away, moped tucked on his arm. Booyah. Take that. You know, that's what I'm going to call it. I didn't even get to finish this first story. I don't know how much longer it goes. But it's very interesting. It's very in-depth. There's a lot of different choices. I'm just curious how this all plays out. And if you're curious, there'll be a link to it in the description below where you can go pick up the demo for yourself right now on Steam, and make sure you wish list the game while you're there. And if you enjoyed the video, I ask you to like, comment, subscribe, as always. By doing so, helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Also lets me know I'm doing a good job. I like a little feedback every once in a while. I'll be back at it again tomorrow with more indie games, indie demos, and great content like this from indie developers. And if you're still alive out there, vampires and werewolves, I'll haunt you later.